I need my hours adjusted so that I can look after my kid during the day. Is that allowed? And I think, Brittany, we're going to take a first shot at that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we know that family status is a protected ground under the Ontario Human Rights Code, and family status is, being in a parent-child relationship. So, whether that's a parent and a child, whether that's a child looking after the elderly parent, this ground is going to apply. So, because it's a protected ground under the code, we know that employers thus have a corresponding duty to accommodate any restrictions and limitations that arise as a result of an individual's membership in this ground. And that duty to accommodate goes up to the point of undue hardship. Okay, so if a parent is at home, they need to have their hours adjusted because of childcare obligations. That's certainly something that they can go to their employer for and request accommodation. Now, I think what's really important is something that you just highlighted, Stuart, which is, the difference between a need versus a choice or a preference, right? So an employer or employee is not entitled to the accommodation of their choice. So just because, you think you need a certain schedule doesn't mean that your employer has to give you the exact schedule that you're looking for, right? So there is some discretion for the employer to figure out ways to accommodate you, which may not include giving you exactly what it is that you're asking for, while still making sure to accommodate your needs. I mean, during COVID, I can say that I know we've all encouraged employers to be as flexible as possible. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that an employer has to comply with an employee's scheduling request, particularly if it's based on a preference, not based on an actual need. So that's certainly something for employees to keep in mind.
Yeah, another great example of people sometimes overestimating and underestimating their needs, or the rates, I should say. And I guess the corollary to that is, one form of accommodation can be a leave of absence. And pretty well every jurisdiction in Canada has adopted some form of leave that's COVID related. In Ontario, we now have the infectious disease emergency leave, or EIDL. But that's simply a leave of absence. That's not adjusting your hours of work at all. And that's one way that an employer could accommodate you, in which case you don't have to provide any documentation because the legislation relating to EIDL specifically precludes medical documentation. But you may not get what you want because instead of having your hours shifted slightly, you may lose your hours and your pay altogether.
Yeah, and I think conversely to that point, I mean, if an employer can't accommodate an employee's hours, an employee should be aware that they have the right to ask to be put on idle, right? Like it is possible for an employee to say, I'm entitled to a leave of absence under the infectious disease emergency leave. It's not just something that an employer can impose. So that's something that's always available for employees as well.